Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling, I think, what has to be the most high-stakes topic in professional medicine, patient confidentiality.
It really is. It's that point where your ethical duty to protect a patient's secrets just smacks right into the legal need to share information.
Exactly. And we're going to cut right to the actionable truth on this.
We are. And to do that, we've pulled from the definitive source, the General Medical Council's guidance on confidentiality. But crucially, we're looking at it through the lens of, how you actually apply it under pressure, how you pass those professional exams like the MSRA SJT.
Because it's not enough to just know the rule, is it? You have to know what to do when two rules are in conflict.
That's the whole game. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Confidentiality is a massive duty, it's ethical, it's legal, but it is not absolute.
Not absolute.
No. Safe practice is all about balancing that patient trust with the need to share information for care, for safety, and, of course, to comply with the law.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Confidentiality is the default. It's the bedrock. I always picture it as a locked file cabinet.
That's a great way to think about it. And the GMC gives you the keys, but only for very specific reasons.
So what are those bedrock duties? What does modern practice demand?
Well, the GOC has 8 core principles, but you can really boil them down into 3 main duties.
Okay.
First up is the duty of minimization. This is non-negotiable. You must always, and I mean always, use the absolute minimum necessary personal information for the task.
And why is that so critical?
Because oversharing just shatters trust and creates risk. Think about it. If the physio needs to know about a patient's mobility, do they need to know their specific HIV status?
No, of course not. That's a perfect example. What's the second duty?
The duty of protection. This is all your information governance stuff. It's about protecting the data, managing it securely. It's not just an IT problem. It's a core professional duty to stop breaches from happening.
Right, and the third?
Transparency and access. You have to tell patients about unexpected disclosures, and you absolutely have to support them in getting access to their own information. It actually builds trust, even when you're making a tough call.
That brings us to the everyday clash point, doesn't it? Sharing information within the care team. Where's the line between implied consent for, say, a handover and needing to get explicit sign-off?
That's principles 4 and 5 right there. Yeah. For direct care, talking to the nurses, the specialist who's also seeing the patient consent is generally implied.
As long as the patient hasn't objected.
Exactly. Provided they haven't said don't tell anyone, you're usually okay to share relevant info with the team caring for them.
But the second it's not direct care.
The moment it's a secondary purpose, like research or an audit or service planning, you need to stop. That's when you almost always need explicit consent. And that's a line they love to test in exams.
Okay, so now for the really interesting bit, the major tension point. What happens when you can't get consent? Or, even tougher, when public safety means you have to break it?
This is where that locked file cabinet analogy comes back. The GMC gives you a robust 4-part framework. You have to meet one of these 4 criteria before you turn the key.
Well, let's hear them.
1. You have the patient's consent. Simple, explicit or implied, depending on what we just discussed.
Okay.
2. The patient lacks capacity to consent, and you are acting purely in their best interests.
Right.
3. You are required or permitted by law. This is things like a court order, a police warrant, or some very specific legal reporting duties.
And the big one?
Number 4. 4. The disclosure is justified in the public interest. This is the key exception. It means breaking confidence to prevent death or serious harm to the patient or to someone else.
And that public interest justification, that's where all the professional anxiety lives, isn't it?
It is, because you're being asked to override a fundamental duty. And serious harm has to mean just that. It can't be a minor thing. It has to be a risk that is so significant, it outweighs the massive harm of breaking a patient's trust.
Can you give an example?
Yep.
What's the threshold?
The classic examples are, say, a lorry driver who has uncontrolled seizures but refuses to stop driving. Or a patient who tells you they have a credible plan to seriously harm someone else. The threat has to be specific and severe.
And your decision has to be documented up to the hilt, I imagine.
Completely. Defensible, proportionate, and documented.
Okay, so that leads us to action. For the doctor in that moment, in an exam or on the ward, what's the safest step-by-step approach?
The safest doctor always thinks consent first, anonymize if you can, And always understand why you're sharing. We could even create a little memory aid for this.
Let's do it. What about CALPS for consent, anonymized legal basis, public interest, and crucially, senior advice?
CALPS, I like it. That works perfectly. It's a clear safety check before you act.
So let's apply that to some common exam scenarios. What's pattern number 1?
Okay, pattern 1 is just routine direct care sharing.
Yeah.
What's really being tested is, do you understand implied consent and the minimum necessary rule?
And the best action.
Just share the relevant info with the direct care team. The trap answer is to waste time trying to get explicit written consent from every patient for every single handover. It's just not practical or necessary. Okay, scenario 2. Protection of others, the public interest one.
This is testing the highest bar for breaking confidence.
Yeah.
Serious harm. Think fitness to drive, gunshot wounds, knife injuries, things the GMC has specific guidance on.
What's the action sequence here?
It's vital. First, you need to be documenting your reasoning as you go. Then, you seek advice urgently from a senior colleague or your Caldicott guardian.
Hang on, the Caldicott guardian. Let's define that. For a junior doctor, who is that person?
Good question. The Caldicott guardian is a senior person in every NHS trust responsible for protecting patient data. They are the ultimate expert on tricky confidentiality and data sharing questions. If you can't find your consultant or it's a governance issue, they are your designated safe port of call.
Got it. So document, seek advice, and then you disclose the absolute minimum necessary information to the right person or authority, like the DVLA or the police. You never delay if harm is imminent, but you also never just email the entire patient record.
Okay, pattern 3. Secondary purposes. Research or audit.
The test here is anonymization. Best action is always to use anonymized data first. If you absolutely need identifiable data, you must have explicit consent.
And if you can't get consent, say for a huge historical study,
Then you need a very strong legal basis. This usually involves something called Section 251 support.
Section 251, can you just demystify that for us?
In simple terms, Section 251 of the NHS Act allows the duty of confidentiality to be set aside for essential research or planning, but only when getting consent isn't feasible. It's not a decision a single doctor makes. It requires high-level ethical approval. It's a greater good mechanism with huge oversight.
That's a crucial distinction. Okay, final pattern. Sharing with family.
This was all about autonomy and capacity. The rule is simple. If the patient has capacity and says, "Don't tell my wife my diagnosis," you do not tell her. Full stop.
Even if the wife is distressed and demanding answers.
Even then, you defend your position by explaining your legal and ethical duty. You can give general updates, he's stable, but you cannot share specific clinical details without the patient's permission.
And if the patient lacks capacity?
Then the game changes. You share relevant information that is in their best interests. But still, you only share the minimum necessary. You'd tell their son who has power of attorney about their medical condition, but you wouldn't discuss their financial history, for example.
So we know the right actions. Let's talk about the pitfalls. What are the trap answers that will score you 0 points?
The traps always come from one of two places: being too scared to act or being too reckless.
Go on.
The biggest one is just ignoring the issue, delaying, especially if it's a safeguarding concern or a public safety risk. You cannot just hope it sorts itself out.
And the other end of the spectrum?
Jumping to conclusions, disclosing everything to everyone who asks. That just shows you don't understand the minimum necessary principle. You have to pause, think, and be specific about who needs to know what.
What about the escalation trap?
Ah, yes. Breaching confidentiality without getting senior advice or documenting it is a massive red flag. Your decision has to be defensible. But the flip side is also a trap. Just referring everything upwards without doing any thinking yourself. You need to show you've considered the principles before you ask for help.
Let's nail this down with some rapid-fire examples. If X happens, what do?
Fire away.
A colleague asks to look at the records of a patient they aren't treating.
Immediately and politely refuse. You have to cite improper access and the need to protect patient information.
Okay. The police call asking for records for a minor offense, like vandalism, but they don't have a warrant.
Refuse.
Oh.
You require formal legal documentation. A phone call for a minor issue doesn't meet the legal bar for disclosure.
A patient asks for detailed medical records about their deceased mother.
You don't disclose immediately. The duty of confidence continues after death. You refer them to the proper channels, explaining that access is usually limited to the executor of the estate or for a specific legal reason. It's complex, so you follow the official guidance.
This has been brilliant for adding structure to what can feel like a very fuzzy topic.
It's all about having a defensible structure. So, To wrap it all up, here are the 3 key takeaways.
Let's have them.
1. Confidentiality is your default, but it isn't absolute. Safety in the law can, and sometimes must, override it.
Ew.
2. In every single action you take, you must live by the minimum necessary information principle, every time.
And number 3.
And 3. For any disclosure that isn't for routine, direct care, you absolutely must have either explicit consent or a documented, legally sound justification that's been backed up by senior advice.
It seems like the whole GMC framework is really just a system for managing risk. Risk to the patient, to the public, and ultimately to your own professional standing.
That's it exactly. Stay structured, document your thinking, and you'll be safe.
A final thought for you to take away. The trickiest part of this is often that public interest exception. So go and look at the GMC's specific guidance on things like fitness to drive or responding to the media. Understanding those nuances is what turns a good doctor into a safe one.